Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today I am talking about Mikanko. It needs to be done. If you didn't know, the new tactical tri pack got announced very recently, and in it we got the three archetypes revealed for it. Those three archetypes being Dark Magician, Masked Hero, and Mikanko. We'll get to Masked Hero and Dark Magician later down the line, but today we're talking Mikanko. And with that, there's a lot this archetype needs. There's a lot of questions I have. I guess the first questions, we might as well get some of my concerns out of the way here. First and foremost, not even necessarily a concern, but just questions that we don't know the answers to just yet. First things first. We know nothing about this set. We don't know how many cards these archetypes are going to get as support. We don't know if they're all going to be direct support, indirect support, whatever. So that's definitely up in the air at this point. I would think since this set is kind of replacing as kind of the spiritual successor to Duelist Pack, we'll get somewhere between 5 and 7 cards, maybe 5 and 8 cards for each of these archetypes. That would be super ideal because I do think all three of these archetypes are 5 good support cards away from being like legitimate, competitive, you know, archetypes, which is really cool. And that gives me hope. That gives me hope for all of them. So I hope they kind of convert that into actual good support. But we'll see. Aside from that, as far as Mikanko goes specifically, one thing that I am weary of at this point is that this archetype is kind of designed to be a hard go second archetype, initially at least. And that's really tough because as we've seen over the history of especially the last couple of years in competitive Yu-Gi-Oh, is for Konami to turn a hard go second deck into a competitive threat, they have to make some really, really busted stuff. So we're talking Sangan summoning for Tenpai Dragon. I mean, that's the most recent iteration of a hard going second deck being like legitimately competitive. Aside from that, you look at stuff like Sky Striker, Mobilize, Engage, and like they have to make some insane tools. And let's be honest, some of these archetypes that have been hard go second decks in like the more recent past of Yu-Gi-Oh, people don't really like them. Almost everybody kind of like doesn't like them. People already don't like this archetype. And so I think that's something you got to be weary of. And I think maybe pushing this deck towards a more going first oriented uh option with still like tools to go second may be a better route. That way you don't have to make something insanely broken go second, like make a card like Sangan Summoning that says you can't interact with me and this is one card OTK. Fuck you. Here I am. You die. Hopefully that's not the route they have to take here. Because you just don't want to have to be the new Tenpai Dragon. But anyway, so that's like kind of a concern, like philosophically, like a larger scope thing of I hope they don't just try to push this deck as hard go second, hard go second, hard go second, because to do that, it's either not going to be good enough, as most hard go second decks are, or they're going to have to make something super, super broken to where people just don't even like the deck anyway and can't interact with it. That's really the way it's had to go in recent memory. So keep that in mind. As far as like the more, smaller questions I have with Mikanko specifically is there's definitely some voids here. There's some problems here that need to be fixed. First one for me, high ratio of bricks. We're going to run through the names in the archetype. We'll zoom through them real quick and you'll see like, you're like, not a card I want to draw, not a card I want to draw, not a card I want to draw. This deck is full of cards you do not want to draw, but kind of still need to play for utility and the ability to do certain combo lines. But yeah, it's iffy there. So I think not only just getting better starters, but like maybe even in the form of cards that turn some of our old bricks into not really much of as big of bricks anymore would be really welcome as well. There's definitely a big void left by I sold as well. Some of the most popular variants of the deck were turning into, in the past couple formats ago, uh, you know, warrior variants because you could make I sold. I sold could get Hare out of the deck and dump multiple equips to grave all at the same time, and that was just really good setup, especially with stuff like Maya Washidori going to grave that way. That's going to be a really good follow up, pusher later on. And with I sold ban now, it does make that a little bit more sticky in terms of filling in that void of setup, just getting enough in rotation. That's definitely a concern I have here because this deck just doesn't have enough ways to one, do enough, and two, get enough stuff in rotation. Period. And then lastly, you know, how do you go about supporting a deck that's like I guess this kind of fits in the category we talked about prior to this one, but like, how do you make a deck that has a very specific gimmick? This deck has a weird gimmick where it's kind of caught in between a hard go second OTK deck and a burn deck because you like, yes, you go battle phase to do it, but you don't even actually try to kill your opponent's monsters. So are you really OTKing? It's a weird in between the gimmick of this deck. When you have a weird gimmick like that, I don't think you want to lean so hard into the gimmick. It can be a nice win con when it comes down to it, but I still think you want to build this deck with a solid core regardless. And hopefully they don't just go hard all in on how can we get our opponent's monsters bigger, our monsters able to stick on the board, and just bang, bang, deal them damage and the game's over. That's just not really the most fun way to play anyway. So that's at least my personal hope. That may be the one of the better ways to support the deck, but I don't think it'll be fun for the people playing it or playing against it. So hopefully that's not the route they go there. Running through the archetype before we come back to this card. This is the only card we've had revealed so far. We don't even know its effects, but we just know the artwork and its name, which is pretty interesting. But running through the archetype, right? And this is something really interesting as far as keeping track of like which of these cards is a brick and which is not. Huli, kind of a brick, basically a brick. Hare, basically a brick. Nini, basically a brick. Let's move these up real quick. Ohime, not really a brick. This one searches you any card in the deck. It can get itself on field basically by itself with any other card in hand. Arahime, I'm still not even sure what this card offers to the archetype. This card seems terrible for the deck. Prep is just more copies of Ohime, which is nice. Water Arabesque, this is your one spell starter. Bouncing a monster, whether it's yours or your opponent. So going second, it's a nice tool to summon a Mikanko from deck is very, very useful. Mayawashi Dori, good card in grave, terrible card to draw. Fire Dance, decent extender, but not a starter. So again, a little bit weird. Rondo, straight up brick. I guess going second in some scenarios, it is kind of like Snatch Steal, a conditional Snatch Steal. There's also Purification Dance. This one historically didn't see play in most builds, but I actually do think it has some potential as a niche one of in the deck as well. Snatch Steal itself is a card to consider for the deck, specifically if you're playing it going second. But even going first, it is a tool. Like get it set up in grave, and Ohime can still just quick effect equip it, right? I think Ohime can do any equip, or is it the trap that equips anyone? But either way, getting in rotation helps you quick effect stat steal an opponent's monster, which is nice. Mikanko Kagura, some lists would play this. I disliked it. This card seems terrible to me. I hate the idea of an archetype that has a level 6 ritual is your main ritual that you're trying to get out, and all your main deck monsters are 3s. And so just to resolve this card, you have to use this spell, have the ritual in hand already, and attribute 2 of your level 3 names. That's what you're doing most of the time. Not every single time. You might play other engines that have enough levels or whatever. But as far as in archetype, what you would expect to do most of the time, you're giving up 2 monsters, the spell, and needing to have the ritual monster in hand in the first place. So 4 cards just to put Ohime on field. And that's not enough. So a new ritual definitely goes on the list for me. This card's cool. This card just pulls Ohime out of the hand pretty for free and then gives you a Foolish Burial later on. We'll talk about this card more later on as well. E-Telly's interesting. It's not super perfect in the deck. Huli's the only psychic, but getting one of your names straight out of the deck can be useful, especially without normal summon. Mikanko Rivalry is also here. They have a couple traps, Promise, Rivalry, and Spirit Walk. People go back and forth on which one they like the most. I think Rivalry is kind of the accepted worst of the 3. I think most people choose between Promise and Spirit Walk for the most part on which one they like more. But they help you get interruption on the opponent's turn, which if you were playing this deck hard go second and you were made to go first, these are the type of cards you're trying to set up to at least have a couple interruptions so your opponent just can't play free there. And then one more card to make note of is Dino Mondo. I'm not even sure this card was out when Mikanko was actually like a somewhat, decent rogue deck. It actually could have some legs here. Summoning Ohime, using Ohime and another monster to make this, getting removal, and then being able to end on this as an interruption. It's kind of nice to get Ohime back. I don't know. This card could actually be kind of interesting. Utility card in the extra for a deck that really doesn't use the extra deck whatsoever. It's a ritual deck. It's mostly main deck overall. But that's the quick run through. As you saw, basically Ohime, Preparation of Rites, and Arabesque are your only starters. And every other card we talked about, if you're playing it, it's not a great card to see in hand. There's so many bricks in this deck, which is kind of tough. So here's what I have to offer. Couple things. One, is a Link 1 too crazy? Is a Link 1 actually too crazy to potentially have be, support in this new wave? My thing is like, one, a big complaint a lot of people have is that there's not enough one card lines in this deck. In fact, I think there are basically zero, aside from Arabesque when your opponent already has a monster on the field. There are no one card lines in the deck. And two, it kind of kills two birds with one stone because it turns all of your main deck ones, the small ones, Huli, Hare, and Nini, into actual good normal summons. If it's a Link 1 that is just making the Link 1 a one card line, let's say it just searches you a ritual or a equip spell, right? So then you can search the Fire Dance to Reborn, the one you normal summon. So it summons it back. Then that one triggers to search you another card. If it was Huli, you're getting a trap. If it was Hare, you're getting another spell. If it was Nini, you're at least passing on a Nini interruption, or at least it's another body and you can try to extend from there. Because if they get a Link 1 that gets you one of your equip spells, they could also maybe give them a Link 2 that's actually more of a end board piece that helps interact with your opponent. And at least the deck would be so much better at kind of climbing through into more stuff, which would be really nice. So there's not a ton of archetypes that I actually recommend get a Link 1, but this is one of the few that I think makes sense because it's going to help kill some of those main deck bricks. The deck really does not do nearly enough right now, and this could potentially give them enough without it feeling broken. It'd feel like pretty good, but I don't think it'd even feel like out of this world broken. For like a going second deck, it would just be an obvious choke point. You would stop that. How do they play through their normal summon getting interrupted? It's like Ohime exactly and nothing else, or Arabesque. And that's, I think that's like totally fair if they're going second. And then going first just gives them more lines. So I think that would be pretty cool. And of course, maybe even a Link 2 as well, like I said. Or maybe it's one of those situations where it tries to lead you into Dynamondo. Dynamondo. Jesus. There. I'd love to see more varied interaction from this deck as well. If you go through all of the in archetype interactions on this deck, they have like no negation. And not that every deck needs to have negates, but like it comes problematic when every deck is just resolving. You know what I mean? Like every monster that has an effect on summon is just resolving. You can steal them, you can bounce them, you can remove them, but your opponent is still resolving that effect every time. That becomes very problematic against decks like Ryziel because they're just going to go plus and plus and plus and just keep getting extenders, keep getting extenders. It can become very tough to actually like fully stop them. So I'm not saying I want like an Omni Negate or anything, but like, can you give them an imperm-esque effect so that way at least monsters aren't resolving every time into the board, because sometimes the monsters are what's helping you get to SP to go after your equip spells. And that's one of the problems too with this deck that a lot of people have questions about is how do you protect your back row? Because when people can clear your equip spells, it puts you in dicey situations. So even just having a monster negate low key, it protects your back row so much more because now you're not losing a lot of board presence due to Nightmare Phoenix, Nightmare Unicorn, SP Little Knight, any of those cards anymore, even Typhon, right? And I think that actually could be a really nice kind of way to like vary the interaction just in general, but also add extra interruption to ways to protect your back row. So it could be a couple different ways they could do that. They could give it more of like a Desiree effect where it negates any face-up card. That way you can still hit Harpy's Feather Dusters and Lightning Storms and stuff at the same time, as well as like just monsters on field. So I think that would be really nice. The deck needs a better ritual monster / spell combo. Luckily, this card's a ritual monster. And we could have guessed, right? It's a ritual archetype. They're giving us a decent sized wave here, we presume. You would think there would be a ritual monster in here. That's what this card appears to be, as you can see, based on the naming. This is a manifested Mikanko. Ohime is a manifested Mikanko. Arahime is a manifested Mikanko. The other ones are Jewel, Sword, and Mirror. So we should already have, this is basically confirmation that one of these new cards is a ritual. I hope it's good. I hope it's just like, I don't know, maybe just a really good on board piece. Like Ohime is fine on board. It's usually just like a walking snatch steal quick effect snatch steal, this card can maybe offer a little bit more board presence, or maybe it's another like ritual that kind of activates in hand and gets a lot of resources going. How Ohime searches you stuff. Maybe this card just summons one from deck and gives it an equip or something. Something quite strong would be really cool. But I'd be curious what it actually does. There's a lot of routes they could do, and of course, we talked about Kagura earlier. This card just doesn't cut it. I know the bonus on being able to destroy a bunch of cards and inflict damage is nice for time scenarios and clearing specific problematic cards, but like I said, it's way too resource intensive. This card is brutally terrible. So I'd love to see a much better ritual spell. And if they want to get really spicy too, go ahead and give us a ritual spell that lists either Ohime or the new Uzuhime or both. And that way it becomes a really nasty pre-preparation of Right's target at the same time. So that card would become a nice like a assisting card in the deck for consistency. That would be really cool. So that definitely goes into the thought process behind this that you would think they would want to do for a ritual based archetype. Clean recycling is another thing that I had on my list here. Looking at ceremony is the card. This is the card you actually end up summoning Ohime with way more often. And when you use this card, it goes to grave, and then you banish this card from grave to foolish something like a Rondo. That way, Ohime is a walking snatch steal, which is good utility. But then this card's banished. And so a lot of these decks would be forced to play 2 of this card at least. Sometimes you'd even want 3 for the grind game, but you just don't want to draw it that often. You want to get it off Ohime when you know that's what you're going for. And so I would just love for the deck to get a much cleaner way at doing recycling, right? And that's the key, right? It has to be clean. If they're going to give us another cringe brick that like, okay, this is only a card that does recycling, I don't want it. But if it is a card that like we do our combo and for free, we also just get to put this back in the deck. It doesn't draw us cards, doesn't have to do anything broken, but it just lets you put a banished or engraved Mikanko back into the deck. Like that would just be such a nice bonus, and it allow us to play this card at 1 with no fear that like we're gonna have problems recycling it at times. So that would be really, really nice as well. Again, helping us cut down on bricks where we can. Very nice. And then lastly, maybe better equips. Like that's the whole thing with this deck, right? It is, oh, well, I guess I'll say 2 more things. This deck is based on equips, and this deck is based on ritual monsters. It looks like we're already getting a new ritual monster. I would hope there's a new ritual spell to pair with it. And then this deck's based on equips. So I'd want something. Somebody threw the idea when I did a community post asking your guys' thoughts on what you would like to see from Mikanko, and their idea was like, give us some more dual purpose equips, right? Give us some equips that have 2 effects. One is damaging to the opponent when it's equipped to their monster, and one is a really good engine effect when it's equipped to our monster. And we can kind of pick and choose how we want to utilize it, and that way some of these equips aren't full on bricks, right? Rondo's terrible as a brick because it's only useful to equip to an opponent's monster. So going first, that card is completely dead. You just want to get it sent to grave. So you can quick effect equip it with like Ohime. And so if that card had a second effect that was like, or you could equip it to your own monster, and when you do, you can just like summon a Mikanko from deck and equip this to it, just be another arabesque, but like at least it would be an engine card. And it wouldn't be a full-on brick. So some dual purpose equips would make a lot of sense to me to kind of again cut out more of the bricks. Maybe it helps us power creep Rondo a little bit and replace it with one that isn't a full-on brick, and maybe even a just straight up 3 of if it's actually that good as an engine card. That would be really, really cool. And the last thing I'll mention is keep in mind with some of these archetypes that just have like multiple different attribute monsters, right? Huli's our wind, Hare is our fire, Nini's our water, and our ritual monsters are light. Keep in mind we have no earth. We have no dark as well. Some of these archetypes would leave like this. This is it's like mostly fairies and stuff in this archetype, so they may want to leave out dark. But Earth, I think, is totally on the table as well. So do we get one more main deck name, level 3? That's a really nice addition. Do we get a ritual monster that we kind of already showed with the new artwork? Do we get a ritual spell? Do we get a new equip spell or 2, right? That would be 5 cards. And then maybe a link 1 or 2, right? A link 1 and a link 2, that would give us 7 cards. That's the exact same amount that we got for duelist packs in the past. And I think they could do a lot of work to help Mikanko come back around and actually have a chance in modern day competitive Yu-Gi-Oh! And that's kind of the goal here. So those are my thoughts. I know it's kind of a little bit jumbled and I'm just kind of jumping around, but those are my thoughts overall. If you're a big fan of Mikanko, let me know in the comment section down below if any of these things resonate with you. What would you like to see from this wave to help them come back around as a deck? I think they're cool. I've always thought they were cool. They're not necessarily my play style, but I've dabbled a little bit with deck building on them. I've not really played them that much, but I do have some love for Mikanko, so I wanted to do them some justice. Hopefully, I did so with this video. But let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. I'd be curious to hear where you guys land on it. I'm out here for today. Stay tuned if you want to hear a video like this about the Masked Hero stuff as well as the Dark Magician stuff, because that will be coming soon as well. Also look for community posts. I'll be curious to hear your guys' thoughts on those as well. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.